the connected consumer. My name is Chris White.
And I am Rosey Ulpino, and we are the hosts for Parks Associates' new podcast, The Connected Consumer.
This podcast is all about Parks Associates' data-driven market insights on emerging consumer technology products and services, and it features our talented analyst team and industry leaders who bring new and innovative products to market.
Throughout this podcast, you'll get an inside look at the latest industry trends focused on the connected consumer, home automation and security, energy management, connected health and independent living, and digital content and video services.
In this episode, we will chat about expanding access to inclusive tech with guest speaker Brook McCall, the Senior Director of the Tech Access Initiative at the United Spinal Association.
Brooke brings tech industry minds and thought leaders from the mobility disability community together for essential conversations and collaboration, fostering mutual understanding and driving needed innovation. Hi, Brooke. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Very happy to be here.
So before we get into this awesome episode, could you please tell us more about your background and how you came to do this work?
I am happy to do that. So my background is, it's really kind of started experientially. Back in 2002, I was actually injured myself, became a quadriplegic. And so while, of course, that's a huge transition for a young person, it also lit a kind of an interesting flame in me where I saw what was happening and access to care and access to just dealing just with the system of navigating my new life as a person with a disability. It motivated me. And so it kind of changed my trajectory and the work that I wanted to do. And so I actually went back to school, finished my master's, and wanted to go into public health. I said healthcare, it needs me. There's so much to do. And I worked in that space for a long time. I have my master's in public health, and I wanted to just work in hospital administration, make some changes on those levels, make sure people are getting better access to care. And then being in that space, it kind of merged that I wanted to start working in the quality of life space and kind of digging deep. And oddly, my pathway took me to a policy job where I was working with other people with disabilities to amplify their voices in the legislative space, which is still, of course, very needed. But part of that advocacy push really led me to the importance of consumer advocacy. And given that tech plays such an enormous role for so many of us, especially those with upper limb disabilities, which is me, a high-level quadriplegic. I cannot use my arms or legs. So my computer this whole time and through my employment and educational journey has really been my autonomy and independence. So I'm in, it all worked. Like my Venn diagrams came together. And so the job I'm doing now is very exciting.
What an incredible story and just a wonderful journey to end up where you are today, and definitely look into the silver lining of the whole situation. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey. So let's dive in, switch up the conversation a little bit. So last year, United Spinal launched its national initiative to expand access to inclusive tech. Tell us more about this program.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I had the pleasure of moving over from our policy team over and starting this initiative and launching what has been a really, successful and quickly expanding program, given its, relatively young age. And really what we wanted to do is make sure that our voices and our members' voices, the community of people with physical disability, was being heard throughout the design process. So these are often going to be technologies that we're, very concerned maybe aren't meeting our full needs, or maybe aren't being the design process isn't really considering us from the get-go. That historically has happened to our community almost on every level. And so we want to change that. And there's a lot of interest and, I've been so welcomed into the tech world in a way that has been really, really nice. Knowing the background of spaces that I've advocated in the past, there's a lot of no's and instead the corporate social responsibility and really the inclusionary efforts have made me and the user group I've built out of members feel really welcome. And we've been working on a lot of inclusionary design processes where we're getting in those conversations early on and actually being able to guide as new innovative products are being made.
Yeah, that's super awesome. How about you share some examples of companies you talk to and products you've discussed with them in the technology space?
Yeah. So what we have is this amazing tech access group, which is our user group. So those are savvy people from the community who are available, just as tech minds, and we come together for subject specific conversations. I know you have taken part in a few. The last one was our gaming discussion, accessible gaming, which is such a huge topic. But we have tech access council members. So those folks are on our discussion calls, and that runs the gamut. It's everybody from Apple and Amazon and Google and Facebook Inc., Microsoft. And then we have telehealth companies, and so Teladoc is on there, and we are talking to a lot of folks in the autonomous vehicle space, since that is, of course, huge and a big place where we want to get in from the ground up, make sure those are going to work for our wheelchairs, that we're not left on the curb as we have been again in the past. So we have folks like Zoox and Waymo and Uber and a lot of fabulous voices coming together in these conversations. So yeah, it runs the gamut. We have additional companies like Verizon who has much overlap, and Greenwich Biosciences that is doing accessible clinical trials and really considering how a virtual trial works and how that would work for folks like us who have different needs. So lots of people looking to be have as much thoughtfulness and empathy built into their design, which I want to make happen.
Yeah, that's great. Now, mentioning Uber there got me thinking. And I was thinking about this too while I was listening to the group talk about video games, that there's a lot of technology that the broader audience is using that might cause additional challenges or innovations that are additional benefits to yourself and your community. So like Uber figuring out how to handle wheelchairs is something I never thought about. I was thinking about the app and I was thinking I wouldn't even know how to handle it. I wouldn't even know how to get an Uber for my friend with a wheelchair. I wouldn't even know how to navigate that. So talk about connected technology that has innovation or features that are designed for a broader audience that have advancements for your community's use.
And Uber and any kind of ride sharing company. So the ride sharing space it's definitely a good case study, and one we all saw the rapid evolution and adoption of ride sharing in our world. It's become a go-to and such a big part of our transportation these days. But yeah, it was not designed specifically at all with wheelchair users in mind. So it became a problem, and so a lot of the solutions have had to be stopgap, and they came unfortunately through lawsuits and people being left at the curb. And there has been quite a bit of discrimination, just given regular people driving cars, and oh no, I don't know how to deal with a wheelchair, I don't want to pick that person up, and so they have had to go back in and create solutions, and I think they've done a good job. I will not pretend that it is, they would not pretend that it is perfect, because it's not. But at this point, I know Uber and I know Lyft and other ride-sharing companies have Wave vehicles. Those are wheelchair accessible vehicles. So likely, actually, Chris, I don't know what city you are in, but depending on where you are, there on a lot of the larger cities, they do actually have, you'd go on the app, you'd look for a wheelchair accessible vehicle. I can put that in. And here, I live in Portland, Oregon, and here they send out, they contract with a whole company that does a pretty great job at actually handling those requests. So I can feel relatively confident again, not perfect.
Right.
There are a limited amount of cars. I've done a bit of that while I was traveling, and it doesn't always work perfectly. So, we've got work to do there. Our Tech Access Council point person, he's actually a wheelchair user himself from Uber, which I love. We have a number of people who themselves are wheelchair users from our Tech Access Council of industry folks. So yeah, that is always welcome. I know he's very interested in kind of that the ride share, like integration of Uber, and making that actually part of the built-in the microtransit that folks are doing, and kind of getting rid of some of those old stalwart non-tech driven dial-a-ride type services that folks with wheelchairs have been unfortunately depended on for years, and definitely need some innovation. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Certainly not the only example of different technologies that have made a big change or have been created, whether specifically or, like you said, the ones that have hidden silver linings, like a smart speaker, that stuff like that, having a virtual assistant in our home. That one's huge, a big one that I would be happy to talk about.
House. Ooh, I kind of want to ask you what your favorite one is, what your preference is. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing scientific about that. I can't put that in a chart or anything because you're just one person, but I gotta know. And also talk about what you use them for.
Yeah, so for me, my house is, I'm a virtual wake word paradise. And I didn't even turn all of them off before this. So who knows who's gonna, yeah, I know. Usually it's turning them, many buttons are pushed, but we're getting into danger zone. But I have all, I'm gonna say I have all wake words. And they all serve unique different roles, which isn't ideal to the average person, but I've wanted to make sure I'm, aware. And the funny thing is, I haven't found any that I can fully rule out. I love my Google products because they listen to me, and I love that they answer questions. And they do that verbally, as opposed to I do use Home Pods, the minis. They for me are helpful. Occasionally, I'm an iPhone user, and when HS, so the lovely name that I will not say, isn't listening to me for whatever reason, I can know that my HomePods are going to help me with phone calls. But it's very frustrating when I ask those questions. They send the answer to my phone, which that's not what I'm looking for. I'm a quadriplegic. Right. Say it out loud. We're having an out loud conversation. And then I use the Alexa products for. Luckily, that's not my wake word, so I'm safe. For TV control, I am able to get in to work my smart TV. The Cube actually allows for more access and right, left, up, down commands, where so I use a Chrome device as well and another TV. And well, if I know what I want, that one's great. Is a little bit more specificity with the Amazon Cube. And then nice. I do, I know we were thinking that we wanted to talk about deliveries. And I can speak to the fact that I live in a high-rise downtown Portland. The last year and a half, especially last year, we went from having a really lovely concierge package service where they'd let us know and put it on a nice screen to, no one's gonna track your packages, so come get them on the mezzanine. And so it was really nice to have that ring light up and say, you got a delivery of, paper towels or whatever we were needing, and not have to worry about going to Scround or worrying, unfortunately, that people's packages got lost or, right. stolen, or, it was a little bit of a Wild West here for a bit. And I was very thankful for those notifications.
Yeah. So speaking of being in the house last year for COVID, talk a little bit about climate control. How about climate control devices in the house?
my family of robot friends they're huge for me, and across the board. So even my paraplegic friends who technically, light switches are not generally, a challenge for them as long as they're close by. But once they get into bed, they are just like me in that they don't want to get up to have to turn off a light or
Right.
or anything like that. So for me, it was really revolutionary when I think it was my first smart switch and my first, I had a Amazon product that I won't say the name, was my first smart speaker. And when I realized my friend set it up to do my ceiling fan, and in the past, I'd have to wake up my phone, my assistant there, and then have her call my assistant. So many assistants, my real live human assistant to wake up and walk into my room and just say, can you turn on my fan? Can you turn off my fan? And instead, half asleep, I could just say, hey, can you turn on the fan and cool down? And, I'd fall back asleep. The other person was never involved. And yeah, that was huge. So of course, I love that now. And you can do lights. As I mentioned, live in an apartment, so I'm a little bit more limited in what I control. But I have friends, who their entire house is so smart. They have voice activated sliding glass doors, garages, getting into their car. They have mechanisms through assistance for, all their access points, or even just controlling their security system, knowing who's at the door, letting caregivers in and out just by either virtual door locks or camera systems. It's very interesting to see. One day I'll have a home and I can, fully automate things. For me here, that's a little harder, but
Right.
so much potential, and it's really, really enlightening. And independence driving for folks that are in wheelchairs or, just can't always do those locks and things on their own.
Yeah, that's great. And hopefully, we talk a lot about interoperability and how that's a challenge for all consumers. But I'm, listening to you tell that story, it makes me hope that everyone gets smarter about making their devices work with more of the assistance so that you can break up with a couple of those ladies, right? And,
Yeah. I mean, there's work, and I see myself as the ultimate beta tester, because I go, wait a second, we have issues having so many people dependent on the lovely Apple assistant woman's name, who I won't say, given that, my roommate has an iPhone, and, we've got iPads and we've got HomePods, and they don't all play perfectly well with each other. Sometimes the wrong one wakes up, I'll say it, and then why is the one from 2 rooms over answering? Wait a second. Yeah, and I think some of that comes from just lack maybe of me not setting all the stuff up on my own, and not maybe there are fabulous solutions there, but I don't know them currently, and
right.
and wanting to have access to everything, but then needing one speaker for one thing that works together and one for the other. And I think letting people choose and really delve in, but still have full access, I think could be revolutionary.
Yeah, for sure. So we mentioned Uber, and I was thinking about this too, thinking about your garage. So we haven't been able to go back and forth to the doctor's office very easily. A lot of doctor's offices were closed. A lot of people switched to telemedicine over the last year. Could you talk a little bit about how people with disabilities were handling that, how different it was from sort of a 2019 lifestyle, trying to go to various doctor appointments and things like that during 2020?
Yeah, I can. It was really enlightening for me. I think it was pretty early in the year. We did one of our big Tech Access Council and group discussions on telehealth and connected health devices. And, I knew that telehealth had been a great addition to my life, but it was really nice to have that reinforced by our other user group members. The truth is often, I live in the middle of the city, and my main medical center is, I don't know, maybe 25 blocks away. It's not all that big of a deal, but the not having to go there, not having to find a parking spot is so nice, because the funniest, like, it's hospitals that never have a disabled parking spot. It's like one of the more frustrating things. Never. You guys, wait a second. Yeah, it really is one of the strangest things I've noticed, especially here, but everywhere I've lived, really. But anyhow, it's just, breaking up your day. So I work full time, and if I have a doctor's appointment, I need to generally take a big chunk of time. It's never just that 1 hour. You're scheduling, breaking off your schedule on both ends and disrupting your day to go do that. So the option to just log on, between my other Zoom calls, to just have one with my physician has been really fabulous. And I'm lucky in that, I do have my own transportation, and that's great, but a lot of people don't. So I know plenty of people who live, in bigger cities and who rely just on public transportation. And even in 2019, they'd have to take off half a day because it's 2 buses and a subway, or the L, to get to that appointment. And that's a lot, especially when, you're somebody with a disability who likely is going to have, a few more appointments than others. And then sometimes maybe a lot more. And not to mention people who live rurally who, no matter what, it's a day trip, or transportation just can be thoroughly frustrating. It's one of the biggest barriers. So not having to do that is fabulous. Of course, we want to keep the policies there that allow us access to telehealth. And and of course, we want to make sure that it's not perfect currently, because there's certain things. It's it's kind of a new technology. So we were happy to, there's good aspects and bad. Voices like ours, unique voices, are, I think, very needed in making sure, as we build that out, it is something that works, even better on all angles. You want the best care as well. So it's not all about convenience. It's also about really having proper care, and care that's seeing you as a whole person, not just a person on a head on a screen.
Not really go back.
I'm rooting for a happy medium, where certain appointments, and at most of my appointments, the reality is doctors' offices, while they're getting better, are not often fully accessible. So I don't usually, I'm not put on a table and given an examination, which is a problem for sure, depending on what kind of appointment it is. But there are plenty where all you do is sit in the chair, or maybe, you sit up on that exam table. But I generally I'm not getting out of my chair. And if so, why not have this at home? This is a talking appointment. Let's do this on Zoom. But then there's those other ones where it's really important that somebody's coming in and you're seeing them. So finding that nuance, not letting policies, designate that you need to not be there, or you need to be there, letting that be something that it's an informed decision between patient and provider.
Right. And I think telehealth, although COVID-19 came through and it was very uncalled for and unexpected for everyone, it kind of accelerated the whole telehealth aspect and, healthcare to be a little bit more inclusive. And our research actually just shows that telehealth services nearly tripled between April of 2019 and May of 2020. So I think it's definitely something that, there is room for improvement, but has definitely accelerated access.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think it's so nice. I mean, I had heard meanderings. No, more than just that. I'd been curious, telehealth curious, prior to COVID, but I had not delved in. I think I had used some, nurses' lines, but I hadn't had a strictly, virtual visit prior. And once I did, I was like, oh, this is great, especially when I really didn't want to be, in that medical space, given the circumstances. But then what I realized is, oh, there's plenty of my appointments that do not need to be, I do not need to go in for this. And so that was unique. And just to see the way it all came together, I didn't have a lot of problems. I'm guessing, some people did. And tech is hard. And if people don't have proper assistive tech, if there's somebody with a disability, that could be very prohibitive. And I know, depending on people's ages and just resistance, my own mom is really actually quite a young mom, is still, she's pretty resistant to some of this change. So of course, being mindful, keeping things in a way that is of course not going to act as any kind of gatekeeping, keeping people away from access, but also expanding access.
Right. And so I heard you mention in there a little note about the costs involved. And I was thinking, we're talking about all these devices you have that you're utilizing via voice. I mean, that's a common, way to control smart home devices. We see between 30 and 40% of people are using their smart devices controlled by voice, either through their phone or directly. And then smart lighting, you mentioned your fan, but lighting and things like that are a little higher even. But all of that stuff comes with a cost. So I was curious if you're aware of work that's being done, if United Spinal is involved in any of that in terms of helping people get access to some funding so they can have this technology that they're kind of advising on.
Yeah. So affordability, cost, it's a huge issue. And despite the fact that I think maybe people may think there is just assistance, after an injury, somebody like me or somebody who has a disability through life, there isn't a lot of funding that's definitely not built into, oh, you've had an injury, here's your perfect wheelchair and your perfect car and all the things you need. No, none of that. It's really expensive to be disabled. And while there are some mechanisms through something like going back to work as accommodations to your job, or through vocational rehab, or if you're younger and going through the education system, there are processes where you can access assistive tech. But for many people who maybe, they're not interested in going back to work, or that's just not part of where they are in their process, and that's perfectly fine. They are often left to pay out of pocket. So I know a big priority for our tech access group is promoting the need for affordable tools. The larger companies can do to start, making, building in quite a few of these assistive accessibility features, which we love, seeing things like voice access or built-in or the Windows accessibility features, where you're not buying an additional piece of software or an additional, piece of equipment, hardware that can often be quite costly. Somehow they fall into the realm of a kind of like a medical device, yet without any kind of insurance coverage. We try to locate where there are, grants and opportunities, find things that are, where we can guide people. But of course, yes, we want that to be an awareness that industry folks know, what can we do to integrate these features to make things a universal fit out of the box. And that, of course, increases access and makes us are able to be your customers if those things are there and actually affordable.
Yeah, I know that's a big policy challenge. I have some friends in public health who work in that space in terms of trying to get certain things classified as medical devices so that they can be accessed through health insurance. And it's a challenge really depending on kind of how the political winds are blowing. in terms of how much influence the insurance companies have and all that. That's a really challenging situation.
Yeah, I think there's movement there, and of course we have a strong policy preference or presence, and we want that, and I think more advocates from the industry side of things as well, especially for smart home devices. They have so much potential to allow people to be at home, independently, not rely so much on another person, as I mentioned with my ceiling fan. Hey, I did that on my own and also saved two people an uninterrupted sleep, which it all makes us all better people. So.
Okay, so you mentioned autonomous cars are something that you are excited about in terms of their development. Who do you like? What do you have a particular eye on? Like, where do you think the kind of most promise is located?
Gosh, that's a hard one. I think it's such a funny. It's like a not space race, but autonomous car race. I see. Autonomous vehicles don't need to look like the vehicles we have now. And for someone like me, it's minivan life. It's all like that's my option. There are a few others, but practicality wise, I'm like, okay, I'm all in on minivans. And and while there's nothing wrong with minivans because mine works fabulously, and but in terms of autonomous vehicles, like making a whole new, breed of cars that can accommodate wheelchairs and walkers and families, and a group of I don't know what the bigger ones will be, but we can get 6 people in here and it's fabulous. We don't need more than one for a group. That kind of stuff is exciting. So the people who are really looking to change things, not just like, okay, let's take a standard car and make it drive on its own. And I see that there's definitely a number of companies that are looking to make sure they are being inclusive, and they want to, kind of a lot of that ride sharing space, and a lot of the like micro transit is looking to, become autonomous, or at least partially. And so I think it's a very, that could be such a game changer for many of my members and friends, including me. I can't drive a car, so I'm always a passenger. And, I don't know exactly when I'm going to be ready to be in an autonomous vehicle on my own. But that said, hey, it would be pretty neat if we got to a place where I could. So.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like right now a lot of the developers it's like either on one side you have like sports cars, and then on the other side you have like tractor trailers that they're planning to use to like, pull, deliver cargo. And you kind of need something a little in between that is like taller, a different shape. But people do have, at least a bunch of the EV manufacturers are starting to make SUVs in the next year. It'll be interesting to see if any of those guys also go in the autonomous direction.
Yeah. I hear a lot about it. I've seen a few prototypes and whatnot, but in terms of the perfect thing, and it's going to be very exciting to see kind of where the market goes, and what picks up and what doesn't. What is the real truth? This is going to be such a unique case study of humans, and business and everything else. But I'm curious. I hope that it's not just the sports cars that suddenly we're like, oh yeah, everyone can have whatever, autonomous Ferrari. And I'm like, wait a second, I cannot do any part of that.
Yeah. So today, the ceiling fan, tomorrow, a minivan that drives itself for you. That's the frontier that we're hoping for. That's the future we're looking for.
That's great. Well, we're getting closer to the end of our episode. So, are there any other advices or things that you would like to see in the tech space as we think about inclusive design?
Yeah, I think it's huge, just to make sure that unique user experiences and just feedback of diverse communities really carry weight to inform, the work that you're doing, thinking of us as important customers because they promise you we are,
Absolutely.
and so doing that ahead of time, making your own corporate cultures ones of inclusion. So you have people on your team that are already, coming up with the ideas, and then, also then consulting, me as a person with a disability. I don't want to be the only person with a disability anyone's talking about either.
Right.
Our voices are so unique, and our challenges and needs are so unique. So really knowing that it's going to make such a better product if you've taken the time to run it by, like I said, like I just think of like beta testers is an actual thing, but of course, you just unique minds that can say like, no, that's not going to work at all. Or, sometimes people thinking like, oh, you want this, right? And get a lot of people with disabilities in the room are like, no, we don't want that at all. That's not my priority. So, being really mindful and nothing about us without us. So come and talk to us. We love being heard. We've, I'm pretty thankful for the wisdoms and, perspective I've built. And so I want to share that, and I'm not alone.
Yes, of course. And so as United Spinal amplifies the voices, what's next? What's next for United Spinal? What's next for your Tech Access initiative?
Yeah, it's our 75th anniversary this year. So, I mean,
amazing.
Yeah, which is wild. And so I've been with United Spinal, coming up on 4 years, and it's been really exciting to be part of this, futuristic, we're doing, we have a national network, and we're constantly growing. But I think, the fact that I've seen our voices really, dig deep in this tech space, and really as consumers, I love that we're being recognized and sought out as experts. We're subject matter experts with special hard won expertise, I'd say. And I think it is so valuable. So, I want to continue to see that grow. Our programs are constantly expanding to help our community in many ways, just to have them thrive and, find these pathways to employment and peer mentorship and just live full, thriving lives, because it's very possible. And
definitely.
Be heard, be seen. It's time to emerge, as we've all are, kind of having this new re-emergence. And I think United Spinal is coming out strong.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for doing this hard work that you're doing. Please also kind of end by telling our audience where they can follow you, if there's any way that they would, be in touch with you, if they had questions. How can people reach out?
Yeah, of course. So across all social media platforms, United Spinal Association. And then for me, unitedspinal.org is our website. Tech Access Initiative would be where you would find me. And reach out to me. Our Tech Access Council is, of course, looking for more industry partners to join. It's a really unique space. There's you're sharing this information, actionable feedback, and there's a lot of between the lines conversation, which is something I love, where people are learning more about our lives and the depth of what it's like to live with paralysis and in a wheelchair. So
yes, of course. Well, Brooke, great insights. Thanks again so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we appreciate the time, Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Connected consumers, make sure to tune in to our next episodes, where we will cover more on smart energy management as well as broadband and entertainment.
You should also check out our Smart Tech Check podcast with industry veteran and host Mark Vina. Smart Tech Check is a weekly podcast focused on smart home automation, security, and so much more.
And as always, we want your feedback. Please feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet at Parks Associates to let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear next.